Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall, and I'm not too far within the United States Capitol. Maybe you'll be able to see it, but I am actually at the Dwight David Eisenhower Memorial. This is the newest memorial placed on the National Mall as of 2025, and it was supposed to be dedicated on 2019. That didn't happen, and then they pushed it up to 2020. It actually happened during the pandemic. Needless to say, there wasn't much of a crowd here, but this memorial pays tribute to the 34th President of the United States that hailed from Kansas, and it celebrates his life as during World War II, as well as his presidency and beyond. And so Eisenhower, I mean, there's lots I could say about him during his presidency. You know, there was a Cold War, there was the creation of the interstate highway system, and on and on. And also, Eisenhower has the distinction of having served in both World War I and World War II. Yeah, he was the only president to have done that. But I'm going to start right where his boyhood statue is, and it's just right there. All right. Let's get on moving. All right, so here is his homecoming speech when he came back to Abilene, Kansas from World War II. His homecoming speech, that was June 22nd, 1945. And if you want to pause and look at that. And then here is young Dwight Eisenhower. He didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, and not many young boys do, you know, when they're that young. I don't know how old he was as depicted on here, but here he is just looking towards the U.S. Capitol and be like, okay, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what's ahead of me. Will I become one of the top military generals in the United States of all time? Will I be president? Will I do both? I don't know. Will I have a monument to remember me forever here on the National Mall? Who knows? This was done by Sergei Islandov in 2020. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. All right, so there are actually 5 parts of this. Now, the statue I just showed you was the first part, and then there's a tapestry behind there. I'll show you more about that. Then there's 2 different statues of Eisenhower, and I'll just make a move on over there. Before we do that, here is, I forgot what you call these things. I guess it's a column. And there's also another one over there that celebrates his presidency, but this one celebrates him as a supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force from 1944 to 1945. All right, now we're going to make our way to the statues. And by the way, there are plenty of sitting areas, so if you're tired, if you're exhausted from all that museum walking, this is definitely the place. And if you're hungry, there are plenty of food trucks. I have yet to have my lunch, but... And that gentleman in the yellow was very helpful. He works for the National Park Service. He did answer a lot of questions. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask a park ranger a question. This is a museum. I'm sorry. This is a sculpture that was pretty much like an adaptation of an old photograph of how he's motivating his troops right before D-Day as they jump out of planes in the middle of the night in the dark in Europe. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. And that was his address to the troops, June 6, 1944. And here he is with a fist. I apologize for the wind, by the way. I know DC was going to be windy today. And sad to say, most of the men did not make it that night because, you know, when you're jumping out of an airplane in the dead of the night, and pretty much your chances of getting shot at are pretty high. But behind this, from what I hear, is another quote. Let me see. So yes, behind the World War II D-Day statue is his speech, the Guildhall Address, which was on June 12th, 1945. I know it's a little hard to read, but it starts as, humility must always be the portion of any man who receives acclaim earned in blood of his followers and sacrifices of his friends. And it goes on. I'm not going to Unfortunately, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to look at his presidential statue next. And yes, that is Dwight David Eisenhower as the President of the United States. Again, he was the 34th president, serving from 1953 to 1961. Again, a lot happened during his term, and but he was very popular nonetheless. I mean, he was the first Republican elected to the high office since Herbert Hoover. I mean, even Bob Hope even joked that it was illegal to vote Republican in the early 1950s. But honestly, I don't think he really stood with any particular party. But foreign policy was definitely one of the highlights, and he ran on the platform, "I like Ike." And the 1950s were an economic boom for most people. I didn't say all people, I said most people. I mean, men, it was, at the time, it was seemingly easy for men to find jobs. However, for, I guess, minorities, you know, it was more of a struggle, which led to the civil rights movement. But it says here, his second inaugural address up there on January 21st, 1957, "We look upon this shaken earth and we declare our firm and fixed purpose, the building of a peace with justice in a world where moral law prevails." So I'm going to look on the other side. Actually, I'm going to go into this tapestry real quick. It is very hard to see because it is see-through. But for those that don't know what it is artist Frank Gehry's drawing that is an interpretation of the Point du Hoc skyline on the coast of Normandy, France. And the drawing was reproduced in this stainless steel tapestry. And the reason it is see-through is because behind it is the United States Department of Education. And they simply said, hey, you can put the memorial next to us, but don't block us, you know, tapestry wall. Well, so that's how it happened, but I think it was for the best either way. At nighttime, this looks cool, according to the National Park Ranger. And then on the back, on the left is his first inaugural address on January 20th, 1953. "We must be ready to dare all for our country, for history does not long entrust the care of freedom to the weak or the timid." And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you want to stop and pause it. And then on the second one is his farewell address right before John F. Kennedy took office. And then here is the other column. This one is him on, it looks like him on the $50, like a bust of him, but I know it was actually Kennedy on the $50. But yes, him as 34th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961. And that building over there, it's usually open. It's from the National Park Service, which, by the way, administers this whole property. But if you want to buy some souvenirs, use the restroom, and get your passport stamps taken care of, that's where you go to. And thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason at the Dwight David Eisenhower Memorial in the National Mall. Hope you enjoyed this episode and learned a little bit about the 34th President of the United States. All right, I'm Jason, signing off.